Pleasant good morning, Virgin Islands, and happy Paradise Tuesday to all in this bright sunny Tuesday, June 9th, 2026, here in Santa Cruz, the most exquisite island paradise in the world. And once again, welcome to At the Table with Crucian Educator. This is yours truly, Burdell Peterson. I'm the host of this 1 hour radio talk show on the number one radio station in the Caribbean, WSCX. You listen on your radio dial to 970 AM, and it's also streamed live and Facebook. So if you miss the show, you can always go back and listen to it on Facebook. Also, it's on the Facebook page of WSTX. And I try to put it on my Facebook page as well. But as I said, it's recorded. It's a show that allows you to call in if you wish to be part of the discussion. And usually the topic focuses on constitutional development, governance, civic education, Virgin Islands history, etc. I do avoid discussing political ideologies, religion, mythology, and conspiracy theories. I try to stick to as much facts as possible, but everybody's entitled to an opinion, a view, a perspective, a theory, a conclusion, a belief, and even a delusion, but you're not entitled to your facts. Facts can be verified, but it's interesting to hear different points of views. And I have today in the studio a former colleague of mine, Dr. Edward Brown, and he also, like I did, ran to be a delegate on the Fifth Constitutional Convention. We were not successful, so here we are, full circle, fast forward, trying to get a constitution. So we mainly going to talk about that and also delve into the matter of what's happening on the political landscape today. As you may know, on August 1st, there will be a primary election. Only Democrats will be in that primary election because you didn't have the numbers sufficient to place Republicans and ICMs on that ballot. You need to have in the senatorial race more than 7 candidates from a political party to have a primary election, and more than one for governor. So if it was just one person running as a Democrat for governor, that person wouldn't be on the ballot. But we have 3 gubernatorial candidates that are Democrats. We have others who are not Democrats, who are independents, but they will be in the general election. So the primary election is on August 1st, and then there will be the general election. So right now, we're in the process of having candidates vetted. Some have been disqualified by the supervisor of elections. Some have appealed. Some one has won an appeal. So that there's a lot happening. There's a lot taking place, and I encourage everybody to be vigilant, be concerned, pay attention to what's taking place now, and participate in the process. If you are not yet registered to vote, you could do so online. You can go to vivote.gov, which is the website for the Virgin Islands elections system. And you could also get information about registration and about the candidates and other events taking place, their lines and so forth. Because knowledge is power. Be informed. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Edward Brown to the WSCX Facebook studio.
Hi, good morning, Miss Peterson. How are you? It's good to be on with you.
Okay, so give us
And good
your
morning to
thoughts
everyone.
on what's.
Which
I know there are lots of
there's a
things
lot
going
going
on,
on.
but in general about this election
Oh
cycle.
well, first, like I was said, well, first, good morning to the listening audience. Radio and social media, wherever you're at on this, on this planet. It's a real sunny day here in the Virgin Islands, especially on St. Croix. Really nice outside. The election cycle pretty much has begun. The folks have turned in their papers to the supervisor of elections, and I commend everyone. It's a lot of folks. This is one election where folks cannot say, oh, it's the same old people running. There are a lot of new faces,
Yes.
people who are very interested in serving. And I've always said it's a lot of fun when you win, and it's not that much fun when you lose. But it is a process. And some folks are going to take, not winning and say, okay, that's fine. I'll learn where I went wrong and try
Mm-hmm.
again. And for others, this will be their last attempt. Probably they did it like certain aspects. But nonetheless, that's again, how life is. Sometimes you have ups and downs, but for those folks who decided to move forward in the process, I really commend them. Because this is the system we have. I know some folks complain a lot about the system, but I always say there are a lot worse systems out there. And so until we get to a better system, this is the one we have, a Republican form of government with democratic institutions. I'm not talking about the political parties. I'm just talking about we elect our officials, which is the Republican form of government, our representatives. And then we have democratic institutions like the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands, where there's a this 2-to-1 decision. Now it's going to probably be a 3-to-2 decision because about 5 Supreme Court justices now in the VI Supreme Court. Those are democratic institutions. The majority tends to prevail, and we tend to accept that structure.
No, I can't dispute anything you have said. They are factual statements.
That's what I try to do. Dates, time, facts, and figures.
I know we may not have share some of the same political ideologies, but I do focus on the process like you, and that's why I'm urging everybody to participate in the election process. Register to vote. Check your status. See if you're still on the inactive. If you didn't participate in the last 2 general elections, you are on the inactive register voter list. Now, do you know all the candidates so far? Do you know them?
You asking me or
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I know a lot of the folks who are running, especially for the delegate position. That's a real tough race, but the Senate as well, the Board of Elections, the Board of Education, folks need to also take those um, boards seriously as well. They play a vital role in the community. I'm talking about the Board of Elections, the Board of Education, especially not just the Senate, the delegate race, or the governor, lieutenant governor. Like I said, some wonderful folks. Some of them are having some difficulties answering very specific questions, which I expected. Because for some, this is the first time that they're engaging in the political process. But I would really recommend that the candidates sit down and develop specific ideas. That's what I look for. I
Right.
don't want you to tell me we have a healthcare problem. I know that. I don't want you to tell me we have a crime problem. I know that with unlicensed. I know all of that. You don't have to tell me that. Tell me how you're going to solve the problem specifically. What idea that do you have? Even if I don't agree, you're already right there for me to give you a vote because at least you have an idea.
Okay,
You
sounds good.
understand?
Sounds good. I don't know all the names. Some I have never heard before,
Mm-hmm.
but I make it my business to be well informed. So I look at the list
Mm-hmm.
of candidates.
Sure.
Like I said, some I've never heard of.
Right.
They're gonna have a tough battle.
It is.
If your
Running.
name is not popular, if it's
Yeah.
not a household name,
Yeah, I mean, even if even I tell folks, a lot of folks know me throughout the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas and John Walter Island here. That doesn't mean I can win an election because you have to prove that you're a person who is electable. And if you've never run for the Board of Education, Board of Election, any board where you have to get elected, how do you know your base? How do you have a
It's a
base?
good point. The incumbents have a base.
They have a base.
And that's why and people say a lot of times you hear they electing the same people. That's because the same voters are going because they make up the base of the incumbents.
There you go. There you go.
So you are going to continue the cycle if you don't participate as a new registered voter.
Right.
It's going to continue.
It will always continue because those folks are familiar with the individuals that they're selecting. They're out there entertaining with them, dancing with them, drinking with doing all the things that exactly, yeah. And you're coming in blind. You're like, I want to serve, but that doesn't mean you have enough supporters to win. I'm not saying don't run. I'm just saying you have to be realistic in that the folks, the incumbents, they have an advantage over you because they have a base.
Exactly. And then the other thing that I am hearing is the government don't do nothing for me. So I am not going to vote.
This may be controversial, but I'm going to say it. And when you hear me say it, then I think the listening audience will understand why I say it. I've talked to a lot of people who are in the Senate over the last 22 years. And the one thing when they come to me, I say, listen, don't waste a lot of time with the folks who aren't registered to vote. And people look at me like, what did you just say? Right. I said, don't waste a lot of time. And they asked me to explain. I said, one, just being a good citizen is just registering to vote. That's the first thing. Number two, you're going to waste valuable time talking to someone that you may not convince to go and register to vote. You need to get to the people who are registered to vote and get them to see you have a solutions to the problem. Now, if someone is saying, listen, I like you, Dr. Brown. I think you're a good person. Can you take a minute or two to tell me? Even if you're not registered, I would take the minute or two. But I'm not going to take 2-3 hours with you and hope that you will come and vote for me just because I tell you so. And that's not how it works. That's not how it works. I've just lost 2-3 hours when I could be out there campaigning and getting to people who are registered to vote. I'm not saying your opinion and your concerns are not valid. I'm not saying that,
right to speak.
But you have the right to speak. But I run in a campaign, and that's money, that's time, that's energy, that's supporters. I need to get out there to get in so that I could serve the people. And if you're not registered to vote, how do you help me to do that? You don't.
Exactly.
That's
but
factual.
I would say to the aspirants who are seeking public office for the first time, you need to build your base. And one way, 2 suggestions. One, encourage those who have never registered to vote to go register to vote and to be engaged with them in a public forum, not one-to-one where you're wasting your time. Use the technology of today.
There you go.
To get your message out. I know it costs money.
That's what I'm saying.
It costs money to take out a radio ad, but you reach a lot of people through the radio ads.
Radio is still the most effective way to get to folks.
Also, I mean, you could try canvassing, going door to door. I am a little queasy about that one, especially when you have people who are very
animated. They don't want you in front of the house.
And very anti-government. They are disillusioned, they're frustrated, they are angry. Some to the point where they want, imagine, Bundon Wappa. Like, really? What's that's going to accomplish?
And that's where I think the frustration comes from, the mistakes of the past, which I won't spend too much time because we can't change the past. But we can do better right now and make it better in the future because we're here. And those problems that happen, folks are trying to correct them to the best of their ability. Maybe they're not doing enough or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you sit back and all you're doing is complaining, that's all you're doing. It's your right to complain. I'm not saying folks shouldn't do it if you want to do it, but that's not going to solve the problem. Somebody's there trying to solve the problem. And if you're not helping them to solve the problem, however it is you can help, then you're not going to get the service you desire.
Another thing, I noticed that the number of inactive voters is almost the same as active voters.
Okay.
That's one way you could tap in. Those people who have already registered to vote, for whatever reason, they didn't participate in the last
There
two
you go.
general elections. I would say to the aspirant, send a message to them.
Right.
Why? Why? And sympathize, empathize. People are frustrated. I understand that, but do your best to convince them, because
Right.
that's
It,
why you're a politician. A
right.
politician
You
is
need a
someone
base.
who's supposed to persuade you. They're supposed to sell themselves. It's a package.
Yeah.
You're a product. A politician is a product. You're in the market.
Right. You're promoting your brand, whatever
Yeah,
your brand is.
you are promoting your message and why you should be considered the best choice. Now everybody's going to have different opinion, but it's up to you. It's not up to me. I do my part as a community activist, telling everybody that I meet just about on the street, are you a registered voter? I am not run for office, but I think it's critical because the government is for all of us.
And I think for people in the Virgin Islands and our geographical location. I mean, if you look in the United States right now and you see what's going on with the voting rights piece of legislation, and you see that folks are going to vote and in many instances still not have representation that looks like them
Right.
throughout the South, but it's really all throughout the country with all these redrawing of the maps in both democratically held states and Democrat leaning states and Republic. Both sides are doing it. That's it's truly devastating because when you don't have someone who looks like you, who's from your community, who can speak to you for your
Mm-hmm.
issue, you're at a huge
Mm-hmm.
disadvantage.
Exactly.
The issues like maternal health care and
Yeah.
child care, all of those
You're a
issues
minority.
are going to get hurt. And we here, because we're distant from that, in so many ways might seem, oh, voting isn't that big a deal until you're in that kind of
Right.
situation, you know,
Until it's
uh,
taken away from
taken
you, you
away
don't
from you.
realize the privilege and right that you have. And it could be. We saw what happened with the British Virgin Islands. Remember when they suspended their constitution?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were speaking previously about what it says. And when I want to read it to those folks, we were talking about Article 4,
Section 3, Clause
Section
2.
3. Okay. New states may be admitted by the Congress into this union, but no new state shall be formed or not erected within the jurisdiction of any other state. No, any state be formed by the jurisdiction of two or more states or parts of states. It goes on to say, the Congress shall have power to,
Yeah.
this is a part, and
This
look
is
at
the
the
part.
choice of word,
This is the part.
dispose, like garbage. You know how you put some garbage in a garbage pan?
Mm-hmm.
You dispose. Let me repeat this. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful
Rules
rules
and
and
regulations.
regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. You hear that? Property.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought and I showed you the mug that I purchased.
Mm-hmm. A person wasn't, should have gotten a reviewer.
Why you need to learn history, particularly Virgin Islands history, since
You're
we're
putting
here
something out there, yes,
in the U.S. Virgin Islands or the Virgin Islands of the
of the
United
United
States,
States.
which is the official title.
Yes.
And this here is saying The
1912.
United States purchased St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix in
12.
1912
1912.
for $25 million
In gold.
in gold.
Wow. That's
Okay.
unbelievable. And they put that out there to sell to
And
people.
it's being sold.
Wow.
I was glad to find it because I was like, wow. First, I like the mug and it inspired
It's
me.
pretty.
Yeah, it inspired me to go and do my own mug
Oh, okay.
to
That's good.
with the correct information.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's good.
And another thing that is controversial, I'm
Hmm.
surprised you didn't comment on that part.
Which one?
I'm gonna read it for you and tell me your comment now.
Okay.
U.S. Virgin Islands
Hmm.
discovered by Columbus in
14.
1493.
Yeah. I didn't know this Columbus covered anything. But anyway, that's why I didn't say anything about it because that I'm surprised that that narrative is still, being promoted. People were here already. People thousands of years before Columbus, and he discovered it. What did he discover? He just came across. He discovered nothing, not at all. No way, no shape. If you go to Mars, where there's no life there that we know of, and then you find something that's different. But they had people in these islands for thousands and thousands of years before the Europeans arrived. So I don't know
I
why
start
people still
using
use
the
that.
word
They
discovered.
didn't discover nothing.
So, well, because technically speaking, the word discover have different
Yes,
connotation.
yes, it does.
If you find something that you didn't know was there, that you personally didn't know, that's a discovery.
Mm.
If you learn something for the first time, that's a discovery. However, we need to get away from using these kind of terms because of the history. There was something called doctrine of discovery. So as far as the Europeans are concerned, in the 15th century, any land, whether occupied or not, that the Europeans came upon in the New World, okay, it was a new world because they didn't know it was in existence. It was there, but they didn't know. The Europeans didn't know, and the inhabitants of the New World didn't know about Europe, or at least it wasn't widely known. Let's put it that way. Maybe you had one or two had knowledge. I
Yeah.
know, like how sometimes you say something and nobody believes you. Maybe somebody came over, sailed over, maybe an African,
Yeah, I mean,
and it eventually died because some stories are never told. And
what
if it's passed on orally, eventually the story
what
dies.
what people forget to realize in European history, just before Columbus made his journey to this side of the world, they had what is known as the Black Plague, and that killed millions of
Oh,
Europeans,
yes.
and they destroyed a lot of the historical documents. So a lot of the European people throughout Europe at that time were totally ignorant of the outside world. But if you look in historical documentation, you would see that there were instances where Native American First Nation people interacted with trade. You also had the reality Europeans interacted with trade. It
The
wasn't anything
Vikings,
like I mean, it
yeah.
wasn't nothing new. I mean, if you look at most monuments, they looked. I mean, the pyramids, for example, in Mexico and
Hmm.
Sudan and Egypt, they all pretty much have the same foundational link. That just tells you people were interacting and trading. Like I said, in these islands for 6,000, 7,000 years, folks were trading all the way from what is Florida all the way down to Peru, Argentina, all these places. It wasn't anything new. So the Europeans came out of the Black Plague were like, oh wow, we have to explore and find out what's going on. We don't know because they were totally ignorant to a lot of the history at that time. Read the books and they destroyed a lot of the artifacts. They decimated a
That's
lot
the
of their things.
bubonic plague, right?
I don't
Which one?
the black we call it not the Black Pig. So probably that's the bubonic pig. But at the end of the day, millions of Europeans died. They
And then you
died.
also had the smallpox
They had a
that
lot of illnesses. A
destroyed
lot, a lot, a
civilizations.
lot,
They,
a
the
lot.
Europeans brought
Right, and
smallpox
wiped out
to
the
the
First
new
Nations,
world.
wipe out millions of First Nation people. So history, if you know your history, something like this um, is not appropriate because it's 1917 and it's not 25 million in gold because gold could mean gold bars, it was gold coins. So you have to be very specific when you start talking so folks can understand. You say, well, no, it's all gold. Yes, it's gold, but it's gold coins, not gold bars.
Hmm.
So that the children would know the history and understand that when they speak, like you just said, there's when we're out on the street, you use United States Virgin Islands. That's fine. When you're in certain places like the legislature, the court, government
Hmm.
house, you should use Virgin Islands of the United States. Because that is the proper title.
That's the official title.
That is the official title of these islands.
I'm a stickler for language. I
You
like
should
to
be.
be precise. I'm a literal learner. If you tell me so, I take things literally. I am not good with what do you call it?
So,
Parables. I'm not good at all. I'm incompetent when it comes to parables because
you have to see
I like
just as it is.
literal language.
Okay.
It is what it is, exactly what you spell out. So sometimes you have to go beyond what is written and expound on it. And another thing that I hear a lot, Columbus discovered America. But nobody discovered America, period, because there was no America until after the Revolutionary War. So you're aware of the bicentennial, not the bicentennial, I mean, what they call it?
250-year
The
anniversary.
250th anniversary, the birth of America
Yeah, this year.
is this July
Fourth,
4th.
correct.
America will be making 250
50.
years
Yes.
old. There was
Which is still relatively young,
it is one
compared
of the
to
youngest
China.
nations
With China is
in the world.
about 5,000 years old. So yeah, it's one of the youngest, one of the most well, really the most prosperous in history. But we know some of the issues involved with that, with
Well,
slavery
we
and
know the
stuff like that.
slavery.
But yeah, 250 years, and the nation is
Relatively
still
young nation.
relatively young, very young.
It's a republic. See, I believe in educating the people because a lot of terms are out there. And most people, we have a caller, and I forget to mention.
Oh yeah, okay, no problem.
Good morning.
You know,
Morning.
the phrase Columbus discovered America, it actually is accurate with, yes, there were people there already, but people can't discover themselves. You won't say, well, the people discover themselves. It has to be some other group finding out the existence of them. So yes, there were people already here, and they would have to be in a sense to be discovered. And so it is not an incorrect phrase to say. And then when you're talking about America, they call the whole region the Americas. So it's not entirely incorrect to say that he discovered America.
Well, he never stepped foot on the continent of North
Yeah, you
America.
don't have to. He saw it. The Virgin Islands. He didn't go to St. Thomas and any of the others. He was offshore. St. Croix looked over and saw the islands and called them. Called them the Virgin Islands after the I don't know how many virgins in the Bible.
No, he named it. He named the islands.
Pardon me?
Christopher Columbus named many of the islands the saints, the Saint Vincent, Saint Kitts,
Right.
Saint
Right.
Croix.
So
He
he
named
saw
them.
them. He didn't necessarily he didn't explore them. But he saw them. And he was the first of the Europeans to do so. And so it's not entirely. I have no problem with the phrase and with the yeah, I more have a problem with what he did after that. That's what I have a problem with.
No, the reason why I have a problem with it is there was no United States of America. There were the Americas, not America. So you don't say he discovered America. What you could say is more acceptable is discovered the new world, which is the Americas.
Right, but America, yeah, right. Americas, I guess that would be a more fitting thing. You could say that it's the whole region. They shortened the United States of America. America being the whole state region.
Right.
But when you talk about the country, it's the states that unite.
Yes. Yeah, the United States.
So we shortened that to, America, but it isn't America. America is the whole Canada, South, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean.
Mexico.
That's what makes up. Right. Well, that West is in Central America. No, yeah. Yeah, that's part of Central, I think. But in any case, America is the whole region, and so it's, and so I said, I have no problems with that. That's the least of everything. It's what Columbus did after he discovered the Americas. He started slavery. His people were going to do mutiny because they were expected to get riches, gems and whatnot, which we know are not really to any extent in the Caribbean. And so they were going to kill him. They risked their lives and they were promised all this stuff, and there was none. And so he told them, okay, to spare his life, and this is in his journal, that to spare his life, he told them, look, you could take a piece of land, you could enslave the native people to work the land, and then send that stuff back to Europe and sell it. And that's what spared his life. But that's also what started slavery in the region. So after a while, the natives didn't hold up well to it. They died from depression and suicide. So that's when they started bringing in the Africans to the region to do the work instead. So Columbus is the one that started slavery in the region. That's what I have the problem with.
Well, it's the history, and some chapters are ugly, but we have to acknowledge the truth, and we have to learn from the truth.
And learn how to learn so it's not to be repeated.
Exactly. That's why it's important to know history. And Christopher Columbus, I mean, and some places he's still recognized as a hero, but we don't celebrate Christopher Columbus Day anymore.
No, the man who started slavery, I can't.
Is it still on the books though? I think it's still on the books. I know we have Puerto Rican friendship, but I think it's still on. I know there are folks who have tried to make it Indigenous Peoples Day, but I don't know if it's still legally on the books in the Virgin Islands, which it may be. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's a good thing. We need to research.
We need to look into and see.
Yeah, I thought that they did pass a law, but I can't swear to it. But my memory is telling me that there was a law passed changing it to Indigenous State. But I don't have a vivid memory of it.
Well, we forever linked with that because we could go to Star River and see Columbus landing. So it is well documented. He landed here on this island called I.
He didn't land on Sequoia. The natives, I guess they were smart. They shot arrows at them, and so they stayed offshore. He actually never came onshore. The natives repelled him.
Okay, I don't know if he actually physically walked on the land, but when we say landed, we talk maybe, you see, again, speech, the English language. It could be just metaphorically.
It was in the territorial waters, it was in the waters of St. Croix, so that counts. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we know he was a historical figure. We know he was a real person.
That's true.
It's documented. He was however you want to view him, and that's the thing. Historians, they write from their perspective.
Unfortunately, but if the truth be told, is reason we are here. If he didn't do what he did
That's
and
true.
bring and started the slavery and bring it, then I don't think he was involved in bringing the Africans over, but he got the ball rolling. And so, ultimately, he's the reason we live in paradise. Not,
He
not
charted he changed the course of history. You
exactly
can't deny that fact. Whether you
right.
like it or don't, he was he's not hero for me, but I
And
mean,
which with they are yin and yang. With the bad comes some good, and with the good comes some bad. So with the bad that he did, there's some good that came out of it. I'm happy to be here. And so and if it wasn't for his bad action, I probably would not have been. You know, good comes some good comes out of bad acts. You know, and as I said, it's history. You can't change it. If you like it, don't like it, it happens,
exactly.
and you need to know about it and learn from it.
Thank you. Well, thanks for your perspective. Maybe you can call back as I'm gonna move on to our next question.
Right,
Thank
right.
you.
Well, what I have to say, Ms. Pearson, I hope if we still have that on the books that we take it and move it to Indigenous Peoples Day.
Okay.
Columbus is no hero of mine. I do believe children have the right to study what he did, just like many others. But here in the territory and all that came afterwards with the enslavement, the serfdom, and all of these other systems that were developed that dehumanized and exploited innocent men, women, and children, and what he himself did in places like Hispaniola and stuff like that. He's not someone that I think that, especially a predominantly a community of color, that we should be honoring in any shape or form with any official holiday, whether it's linked to VI Puerto Rican friendship or whatever. That's just how I feel that we
Well,
should
I
move it
appreciate your
towards
perspective.
the Indigenous Peoples Day.
Thank you on that. I have three questions I want to get to you
Okay,
today. I don't know. Did I send you the three people?
you did.
Okay,
You did.
let me get to them.
Okay, very good.
The first one, in your role here in our community,
Yeah.
what ideas you have to enhance our culture, enrich our history,
Hmm.
promote civic education. I'm trying to recall
Yeah,
exactly how the
exactly.
question
That's
is.
fine. That's fine.
In general,
I think we're doing that.
make the Virgin Islands of the
I
United States a better
I
place.
think that we're doing that. It's a process. This is paradise in so many ways, and we live in a environment that is breathtaking. Especially if you go down Frederick Setting just before the sun goes down, it's just a beautiful view of, especially if you're on the waterfront. Just an amazing place to live. I wish that more people really recognize how beautiful the Virgin Islands are, and how much better in regards to quality of life that we can make it if we so choose. I know there are problems. There are problems everywhere. Every place on this planet has problems. The Virgin Islands is not unique in having problems.
Mhm.
I think we need to do a better job in solving the problems. We have a lot of legacy problems that we just continue to keep
Persistent.
talking about from like the 1960s. And I think that that is not helpful. We have the folks right here who can solve the problems, and they need to solve the problems. I think folks are embracing, the love of the Virgin Islands like never before. People have tattoos. I have tattoos of the VI, and the celebration and the food and the art and the music. That is, who makes us who we are as a people, and it's wonderful. So I always tell folks, if you're away from the Virgin Islands, even though you may be seeing things that you're like, oh, that's still happening, you have the right to speak. But I would tell folks, don't beat down on the Virgin Islands because there are problems where you live as well. And if you're
Mhm.
really concerned enough, then come back home and help solve the problems.
That's a good point.
That's it.
That's what question I really meant to ask about enhancing VI pride. But I think you answered it. And I was saying promote culture. And I would like to highlight an event that's coming up this Thursday. I hope you're coming. Taste of St.
What
Croix.
is this Thursday?
It's
Oh wow,
this
that's
Thursday.
been around a long time, long time.
And I am honored to say I was the winner
You won?
for the silver anniversary last year
Oh,
in the category of beverage.
Oh, yeah.
Number one.
Very good.
And I'm looking forward to participating again. So those of you who haven't purchased your tickets, I don't know if there's any available.
You have to
It's
find that
really,
number and call. Usually around Thursday,
they are sold
they are
out.
sold out like
I
3 weeks,
mean,
a month before. But who
but
knows, somebody may have a ticket and willing to give up their ticket.
yeah, so this Thursday, and it will be held at the DV Carina
Ah,
Resort.
okay.
So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that. That's one way we promote our
Oh, yes. Food is a
culture
big
through
thing.
food.
Especially on St. Croix. Food is a big
And
thing on St.
there's
Croix.
always that. It's not just a little friendly battle.
Yeah,
Banter is who
always.
better cook, Saint Crucians or Saint?
Well, that's not a debate.
Oh
That's
my.
not even, yeah. Let's not go there.
Oh no, right?
No,
Okay.
that's not
No,
go
the second question. What would you say are the five most important issues
Facing the territory.
facing the territory that
Um,
the Virgin Islands government must
Sure.
address?
Number one, I mean, I just listing them. They really no particular.
Right.
Just listing. Number one is uncompensated care. We have to address that. We
Okay.
have to address. I know we all need to be cared for. I embrace that, but we also need to pay. We have to come up with a system
Mm-hmm.
where is everyone in the territory, every man, woman, and child has health care. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
you have to have registration for your car. You
Mm-hmm.
have to do the seat. All of those things we need to do the same thing
Okay.
because at the end of the day, folks going in and they're getting cared for, and some people can pay and just refusing to pay, and then it's creating a
Mm-hmm.
nightmare. That's
Right.
no, there are a lot of issues in healthcare from the folks living at the hospital, elderly, but that's just the one
That
that I
covers a
focus
whole lot.
a whole lot. Number two, unlicensed firearms and the driver's license suspension and revocation if needed because the roads, the government, these are government roads. They
Mm-hmm.
belong to us. And folks are making a choice to go and get an unlicensed firearm and driving around with an unlicensed firearm. And we all know what is happening with that. We have to address that. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
I see an increase in gun
That's
violence.
what I'm saying. And if you're going to have if there's a bill, I think that's looking at suspending your driver's license if you have too many tickets and stuff like that, then why are you
Okay.
with an unlicensed firearm
Mm-hmm.
and driving around? Number two, number three, the economic stagnation at St. Croix. I know that Mr. Dave Johnson spoke about that recently. He's hoping to open the refinery again. I know that's controversial for
Mm-hmm.
some,
Yes, it is.
but that has been an economic driver for 40, 50 years here in the territory. And so, maybe we get another 10 years out of that if everything goes as planned, but we'll see on that. And then the trade zone, I know we talk a lot about the trade zone,
Mm-hmm.
but as I said to the leaders in the territory, we have to put the upfront investment in the trade zone.
Mm-hmm.
Not someone we believe, Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, all of these trillion-dollar companies, Meta, all of these companies come in here and build that infrastructure. That's just not going to happen. We have to bring the digital equipment. We have to bring the warehouse, and we have to do everything to attract those type of companies to the territory. And then finally, I'm leading into the constitutional political status. We have to address that. It's
Mm-hmm.
time for us as a people to say clearly whether we want incorporation or we don't. And if the US said, well, you know what, we're not going to incorporate it. We are incorporate the territory. We already told you guys you're unincorporated,
Mm-hmm.
and that means for us that you can be with us, yes, but we're not going to let you in fully to be full citizens. I have a problem with that. That's just a nightmare situation for the territory and for the people of the territories, the U.S. territories being unincorporated. And in the case of the Northern Marianas and Puerto Rico, they have Commonwealth status,
Mm-hmm.
which is just saying really and truly, well, you're not incorporated, but you could be maybe because your federal designation is not unincorporated. Um, I don't think that's a wise move for us to stay in this particular situation as a colony of the United States. It's not good. It's not healthy.
Well, tell me the advantage being designated a commonwealth that Puerto Rico has over
They,
the U.S. Virgin
they really
Islands.
don't have much. It's because they're both, the Virgin Islands is unincorporated. Puerto Rico is unincorporated. Puerto Rico, from my understanding, they really deal more so with the White House. They have a resident commissioner, but
Right.
that's
You don't
another
call it
area.
delegate to
No,
House of
and that's where
Representatives.
folks in the Virgin
And they
Islands,
have 4 years,
and they have
unlike
4 years. I
yeah,
think
the
folks in the
yeah.
Virgin Islands need to understand something because we're saying it wrong. We're saying that our delegate role is to go up there and beg and speak for the government of the Virgin Islands. When they had the hearing in the 1970s, I have the documentation, so I know what I'm saying, Ms. Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
It was a strong debate in Congress at that time. Both Democrats and Republicans did not want that term to be used, delegate to Congress. They did not. They wanted it to be resident commissioner, just like Puerto Rico, where the government, the resident commissioner in Congress works with the governor of the territory to enact whatever the government feels was necessary. Delegate to Congress, in their mind, two things. One, represents the people,
Mm-hmm.
not the government. They represent the people. And
Mm-hmm.
whatever issues the people had would go through this person to bring to Congress. And number two, they were concerned that the people in the territories would assume delegate potentially means some level of incorporation because that was what the term that was used in the Constitutional Convention in the 1700s in
Mm-hmm.
regards to developing the Constitution in 1780s. And they were like, we don't want that. We don't want that term delegate to be used, that word delegate to be used. We're not for that.
Mm-hmm.
But through the discussions and everything, we eventually ended up with a delegate to Congress. And today, in 2026, we say our delegate does both or should do both, represent us or represent the government. And the resident commissioner in Puerto Rico is saying the same thing. I represent the people and I represent the government. But there are people in Congress will tell you, nah, no, that's a problem. Because before, all of the most, if folks don't notice, many of the issues facing the territory went straight to Congress
Mm-hmm.
and the committee, the subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs. And they told the people in the Virgin Islands, if you guys have this position, you may lose a lot of the representation you have now because there were members of Congress who were constantly complaining and saying the Virgin Islands has more hearing than even our districts.
Mm-hmm.
But they said, but you can't feel that way because they're unincorporated and they need to be heard. So it went straight to the committee. Now our delegate can choose which issues to bring forward and then even tell you, well, we're not the party in power, whether it's Republican or Democrat, so we can't. That has nothing to do with it. It's nothing to do. We're supposed to be heard throughout the Puerto Rico, American Samoa, now the Marianas, the Virgin Islands, and Guam. We're supposed to be heard whenever we want to. Don't mind what people tell you. That's just not accurate.
Well, it's interesting you said delegate to Congress because we often use that term, but in the U.S. code, it's specific and it says delegate to House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
But I had someone correct me, and not that I was debating. I'm like, I don't need the correction because I'm aware the title used is delegate to House of Representatives, but we informally say refer
Again,
to it
right.
delegate to to Congress. So she thought she was this is a member of the board of elections. She thought she was correcting me. I'm like, I never said that was the correct term, delegate to Congress. I'm just using a term that people commonly use, but it's the same function. And that wasn't the point I was making, is the qualifications to run for the office. Now, this is controversial. I'm going to ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
What's your understanding of, we know the three. I could point out some of the eligibility requirements. The age, 25. I mistakenly said 35 and I got crucified. It's 25 years. Thanks for the correction.
25.
And you have to be a citizen of the United States for at least 7 years. So that means you could be a naturalized citizen, but you have to be naturalized for 7 years in order to be eligible to run. You have to be, you can't be running for any other office.
Okay.
And the one that some people seem to omit,
okay,
especially I'm surprised those on the board of election, they seem to omit this part. An inhabitant of the territory you're elected from. I don't know how is that a dispute, because I'm like, if you're running for resident commissioner from Puerto Rico,
Right.
you will have to be an inhabitant of Puerto Rico.
Well, I would say this. I have not studied, to be honest with you, Ms. Peterson, I haven't studied that issue in depth enough to feel comfortable stating, I like to study things and go into. I
Mhm.
see there is a lot of friction on the board of elections. Many of the boards have a lot of friction. Friction isn't necessarily bad. However, the board and the supervisor and the aspirants and everyone seem to a lot of lawsuits. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't give my opinion on that until I look at that particular
That's
issue
fair
more.
enough.
But I know too we're running out of time. But and I didn't want to not talk about the
Yeah, we
constitutional
gonna get to that
convention.
third one.
Yeah,
You
because
could go ahead.
thank you so much. Because that's another issue that we're faced with right now. And I think the delegates are working on submitting the draft very soon. I'm not sure when soon is, but it's very important for that people understand that process is very important. I do believe that we do need a constitution. I've been saying that for many, many years now. I think the biggest issue that has plagued the whole process has been federal consistency throughout the document. I
Mhm.
think that Public Law 94-584, Section 2B1, there is that section within the law that says that the document must recognize and be consistent with the sovereignty of the United States over the Virgin Islands and Guam,
Mhm.
respectively, and the supremacy of the provisions of the Constitution, treaties, and laws of the United States applicable to the Virgin Islands. Now, the word we recognize, one can debate that, because that's been my issue. Recognize
Mhm.
in our local constitution, the supremacy of the Constitution, treaties, and federal laws. I have issues with that because we are unincorporated territory. And the fact that we are not a state, as was just mentioned by a judge in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, he mentioned, that was Judge Thomas Harneman, he mentioned that there should be some differential treatment in regard. This is a case that's going on in the district court. I won't get into that particular case, but those words, those three words, some differential treatment, is very concerning based on our history going back before, during, and after the transfer. And so when you look at this attempt, maybe the delegates, Ms. Peterson, may be able to get to a point where throughout the whole document, they will have consistency with the Constitution, treaties, and federal laws. But that has been a major problem with the fourth, the fifth, and even one could go back to the first. It's always been the big issue. To me, it's not diversity, it's not about any of the other issues we talked about, because at the end of the day, when the federal reviewers look at the document, they always point out these same issues: recognition of sovereignty, political status, elections, residency requirements, unequal legislative districts, territorial waters. It's always these same issues. So I don't know. I don't know.
What would you recommend to ensure success this
Oh
time?
wow, it's hard. That's the question. How do we get over the federal consistency issue? Like I said, we could get over the recognize. That should be debated in Congress and taking out that word recognize. But when the legislature calls the Constitutional Convention under the current structure that the United States is the sovereign, it is the administering power. We can't tell them what to do. We can't tell them under Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2, what you
Yeah,
just read. Well, we want A, we want B, we want C, we want the rights to our beachfront, all of these things which are important to us.
uh-huh.
But they're like, that's not important to us in Congress. That may be important
I
to
know.
you
All
guys,
right. We
but
want a
no, we
cultural
want,
identity, and
yeah,
they don't
they
care.
ain't care about that. And they've been saying
They
that.
just want you to be
It's
explicit and
nice,
recognize
the
the
Constitution,
sovereignty of the United
right?
States,
That's, and
and to
the treaty,
reinforce
their
the
laws,
status
what they, and
unincorporated, and it's going to be remain unincorporated until or
Congress
unless
says,
we have a political status referendum.
right? Congress decides. It's hard to say, but it's true. Congress decides our current situation. If we move towards free association and independence, Congress still has a say. No matter what we do, Congress will always have a say until we're freely associated or independent. I'm also independent because
Mhm.
then everything is on you. freely
Right.
association, you're sovereign, but you still have an associated relationship. And so you're already seeing some of the friction. I think the gentleman was there and he was talking about the gentleman, I think Mr. Albert is his name. Give me 1 second, folks. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Richard Albert. He is a law professor out of the University of Texas, and he's a constitutional advisor to the convention. And he
Yes.
came and he
He's
represented,
a consultant.
yeah,
He's paid. He's paid, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. They just said that he's a constitutional advisor to the convention. And he mentioned the same issues that I'm talking about. That is not just a provision recognizing the sovereignty of the US, it's throughout the whole document. And
Mm-hmm.
what has happened, and it's going to happen because it's going to happen now too, where folks are going to be the delegates, some of them are going to be, I'm not changing anything. I believe what we put in there, the language we put in there is fine. This is what we said is fine, and that's how it's going to go. I'm not going to go back and rewrite nothing. This is for the Virgin Islands. This isn't for the US. And the federal reviewers are going to review it and say the same thing that they've been saying. These are problems that if you guys vote on this document and you accept it, which is fine, but we're going to end up in costly litigation. The courts may determine it for you, and then you're very upset. Don't do it. And we saying, well, we don't want to hear that. So I don't know.
And it seemed to me that the Congress is reluctant to approve a document that doesn't meet the requirements
Federal consistency.
in the public law. They're reluctant to approve it.
Yeah,
They may approve it and voice some concern, because I think that's what happened with the fourth draft. And they went back, right? They revisited it.
that was a different time. That was with Jimmy Carter,
Okay.
who was more.
However,
and
let me make it clear.
Time. A different time.
See, language is funny, the English language. Congress did not officially rejected the fifth constitutional draft. Officially, they don't ever stamp rejection on the document. What they do is they approve, they have the power to modify. With the fifth draft, they give the delegates a second bite at the apple. Go back, address these 9 areas of concerns. For whatever reason, I'm not going to go in because it depends on who's telling the story. You're going to get different version. The bottom line, it doesn't happen, right?
Right.
So that's why we're here. And the sixth constitutional convention, but it was Congress never. There's no option in there as a rejection.
No,
It's
because,
only to approve or to modify.
and at the end of the day, I forget the congressman's name. I can see his face. But he was from Alaska. And he said it best when Delegate Christensen and Mr. Love James went up there. He said pretty much, hey, listen, this is not really an issue. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing here. You guys haven't approved anything. And if you do approve this document, then we're just going to go to court and then we have an issue. But right now, we don't have an issue. And Delegate Christensen was like, okay, yeah, you're right. But at the same time, we're here in Congress and we have oversight and we should address the problem as it is right now. Don Young, Congressman Don Young, that's from Alaska. And, the reality, some of those delegates for the fifth, they were not going to go back and do anything. And I know that because I spoke to some of those people. They were stuck on what they wrote and what they accepted, and they weren't going to go back. I know people may believe differently, but I talked to some of them. They weren't going to change nothing. Some would have. It is true. Some were going to go back and try, but others were like, no, this is what we wrote. This is what and I expect the same thing from the sixth. Why would I go back and change something if I fundamentally believe in it? And now the sixth, they probably have the hardest job because there's just little excitement for this process. I'm not saying it's going to fail. Only God knows what's going to happen in the future. But I do know that they have a really, really hard job ahead of them trying to get the community excited. And if they have areas where they don't meet federal consistency, that has been the killer for this whole process. Every time the people of the Virgin Islands see just one provision, one, it could be sovereignty, it could be dealing with citizenship, it could be rights for native Virgin Islands. When the people see that, they already done thinking, oh gosh, here we're gonna go to court. There's gonna be a friction between Congress. I don't want it. Let's just end it. That's what always happens.
Well, that's why my position
It
was
always happens.
to expedite the process to be prudent. Just simply adopt the revised Organic Act of 1954 with a clause for it to be amended so we could have moved forward. And that way, at least we don't got foot in the door.
But here's the thing before I know time is pretty much up.
Uh-huh.
Here's the thing though, Miss Peterson, with that. When you ask for things, you have to pay the consequences, good or
Mhm.
bad. That's life. When you ask for something, you got. We asked Congress to give us this right, and they told in the night. They told Randy Lugo, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if all these things we're doing for you guys in the territory should be good. You guys are unincorporated, and we're making you think that you guys are going to be incorporated. And they were telling him back then it's not going to happen. But Randy Lugo was, man, that man was really good. He convinced them, they liked him, they gave him a lot of what he wanted, but they told him, it's in the documents. You asked for this, we give it to you. Don't come back around years later when you guys can't get it done and tell us you want us to do something else. We're not going to do that. That's when you saw when our delegate Plaskett brought that forward. Nobody really signed on to
I
it
know.
because we asked for it.
Yeah.
So we have to show that we have the political maturity to get it done. And if we can't get it done, then we have to address status. Let's stop this because it don't make sense. That part of federal consistency is so strong because there are folks who want to incorporate, then there are folks like me who want free association, then there are folks that want more rights under the current system but don't want to pay the taxes.
Anyway,
crazy. You see what I'm saying? It's crazy.
I want to thank you for being here
And
today
thank you.
and prompt as well. And
Always.
it was enlightening to hear the discussion. And
Yes.
those of you listening,
And the views and the opinions expressed by my own. And so I know these topics can be difficult for folks to hear, but at the same time, we have to do it. We just have
yes,
to.
we
So
have
thank
to.
you so much, Ms. Peterson.
And I encourage everyone again, if you are not registered to vote, it's easy. You could register online. Go to vivote.gov and pay attention to what's happening. Be informed. My
Yes.
mission and passion is to educate, enlighten, and inspire minds. Like for I'm inviting you to join Virgin Islands Affairs Forum, where you can express your thoughts pertaining to any matter affecting the U.S. Virgin Islands. Live, listen, learn, love, and levitate.